Global Grand Rising, everyone. All right. Hope you are having a blessed day so far. Hope everything is airy. Just rising and getting in the groove here to share a morning meditation with you guys. Now, usually, um, this program is aired on IVFM every Sunday morning. It's usually a program called the Running African Program with Sister Kabu. I did not get much of Mutabaruka's show. I shouldn't say much. I should say I didn't get any of Mutabaruka's show Wednesday and Thursday. I didn't see any repeat broadcasts. I don't know if he was out or what the scenario is or was. But I am able to get a double whammy as I am now going to engage the discussions between Mutabaruka, um, Chief Richard Curry of the Maroon community, one of the Maroon communities in Jamaica, Sister Kabu, and I don't know. So here's what's gonna happen here, folks. This thing is almost 2 hours, but what's gonna happen is I am sharing this with you the same time I am listening to it for myself. So I have not heard it before. So let's bear this in mind. So we are going through this together. What's gonna happen is, as I listen, if there's a need for me to, if I feel the need to stop and interject, put something, add something to what is being said. If I feel that there's something that I need to add to the discussion, then I would, pause and interject. If not, well, I shouldn't say if not. That's something that I think will happen. But the reason I'm telling you this is because I am going to be engaged in an activity for a few minutes that is not necessarily YouTube friendly. So you would not necessarily see my face on the screen. I will be here though. And yes, I will get into sharing this, but like I said, it's the first time I'm hearing it as well. So we're gonna be, listening to this together. All right. So let's get into this, and if there's a need to, I will provide a WhatsApp number so that folks, if you're interested in calling in and giving your input, sharing your meditation, sharing your vibes, I'm gonna give you that window of opportunity on this program. So anyway, let's start and let's get the ball rolling. I think I would have talked enough, at least to give you some time to get on and get your popcorn and whatever else you need to just sit back and relax and listen to this. Or if you're up and you're getting ready to go to work, or you're at work and you're looking for something to listen to, well, this can be your companion while you work. Like I said, I don't know much about the discussion because I haven't listened to it before. So I guess as we get into the discussion, I would see where and when I need to interject and say something. So look into the comment section. I will post the number in the comment section if you're interested. If you're interested in calling in and weighing in on the discussion that you are hearing. So let's get into this with no further ado. Name is important to me. Oh, yeah. Especially you, I tell you, Cabo, especially you. Muja, right? Man, you make me feel away. Look, I mean away good because thank you for that. Muja, I was so frightened when we book up my name in the book because I just did not know. I know, and I was totally shocked. Baby, I said to her, look there, my name in the book. Yeah, man,
The thing, and then your human rights is determined by how many hotels you're building. You have a right, a human right, to the beaches that used to be for the other people and who you're calling human, but not human in your eyes. You have a right to the land that you're going to take away from the other people on the island who you're calling human, but they are less human than the ones that you're going to give it to. So don't tell us about your human rights. Don't tell us about your human rights. At least not today. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is honoring the United Nations General Assembly's adoption and proclamation on December 10, 1948. 75 years. On the island in Jamaica, we know that we are challenged, that our fight is for human rights, and we're losing the fight because they do not see us as human. So today, on this day, watching what's happening in Palestine, watching what's happening in Sudan, watching what's happening in the DRC, watching what's happening with M23 backed by Rwanda, watching what's happening in the UK, just watching what's happening around the world. You are not going to gaslight us into celebrating, observing, or to buy into your lie about a universal human rights. Because you have already determined and defined who is a human. And you have a scale. First of all, at the top of the rung, you have shown us time and time again how you see and what you define as human, and who among us is more human than others. Now this land is so rich. So we go to George Orwell. All men are created equal, but some are more equal than some. So basically, that's what you're celebrating today. That's what you're observing today. Don't tell us about your human rights. We don't have the right to nothing. As it stands here now on this island, we're losing our rights minute by minute by minute. Losing our right to access the water. Losing our rights to access the sea, the beach, the land. Losing our right to live. Losing our right to drinking water. Losing our rights to equal rights and justice. This is basically what's happening on this land. So when we see the Minister of Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Manor, who fought in that ad, as they say in Britain, she's taking the piss. It's a slap in the face of Jamaicans. It's a slap, a collective slap in all our faces. So they're gaslighting us into believing that we've got these human rights to health care, to proper health care, access to health care. That's supposed to be a human right, don't it? Access to education, equal rights, equal access. But we don't have that. Access to land, access to water, access to the beach. They have taken all of that. I spoke recently about the extent to which Jamaican people do not have access to drinking water. And you're telling me about International Human Rights Day. So you're not gaslighting us into that. Let me take a break. Being observed on the island, and I'm talking about this because Jamaica is making a big deal of this. Jamaica is celebrating and observing 75 years of International Human Rights Day, or the Declaration of Human Rights, depending on how they want to phrase it. And I am saying in this space that just taking just a cursory glance around the world, human rights means something else to us as African people, black and brown people. It depends on where you are. I know I'm talking about the global south a lot in recent times, but I have no choice because more and more and more we're seeing this demarcation more now than ever, or we're returning to this demarcation. So that for those of us who watch the vote, the UN Secretary General, the United Nations, giving them credit at this point, and the Secretary General, obviously bolstered by the massive demonstrations around the world, by the loud cries inside of the United Nations to do something about the ethnic cleansing that's happening, the cleansing of Palestine that is being carried out by the barbarians on the other side, on the other team, that the genocide that is underway, carried out by Israel against Palestinians, that there was this loud cry. The UN Secretary General was forced, he was pushed, or however he did it. He invoked and activated Article 99, which means that he forced the UN Security Council to come to the table and to meet and to talk about and to draft a resolution and vote on a resolution for a ceasefire, a humanitarian ceasefire, a human rights ceasefire. And we had, 13 or so countries voting yes on it. Jamaica voted yes for the ceasefire. Good for them. Got permission, of course, to do that. And Britain abstained. Abstained. Rishi Sunak and them abstained. And the United States vetoed this. Biden and his team, Blinken and them, veto that in other words, them stop it, them say no ceasefire. That's basically what they said. No ceasefire, no human rights ceasefire, no International Day Human Rights ceasefire, no ceasefire on December 10, International Human Rights Day. Bomb them into smithereens. Bomb them if you can. Kill the children, kill the women, bomb them. That's basically what the veto meant. We're going to call a spade around here, and we're not from St. Elizabeth. In this space, we deal with the isness of things. It is what it is. Appearances to the mind. In this case, with the United States, things aren't, but they appear to be. So the United States appears in the rhetoric to be calling for a ceasefire. But when the world votes for the ceasefire, the United States says no ceasefire. You have to understand that psychopathic, narcissistic personality. Because you do have narcissistic states and you do have psychopathic states. So you have to understand that whole process. You're telling us that you want the ceasefire, and you're saying this on the world stages, the world stage. But at the same time, when it comes down to the bottom line, you say no ceasefire. And I watched that entire thing, I listened to all the speeches and I watched the entire thing, and I said to myself, I want to talk to Mrs. Biden, Dr. Jill Biden. I want to ask her, what is her level of concern, if any, for the almost 5,000 babies who have been killed, massacred in Palestine by Israel? I want to talk to her. And then I saw Michelle Obama in Malawi with Bill Gates' former wife, ex-wife, and with three of them. There was somebody else there. I can't remember who was the third one. And I'm saying, Michelle, you do have a voice. And I'm watching everybody wearing purple, Oprah and them in purple for the opening of Color Purple. And I'm saying just so much is happening. And I see that Times, the Times Person of the Year this year is Taylor Swift. And nothing is wrong with that by itself. But in wartime, usually in wartime, what Times does is that it names somebody or a group of people or two or three. So the doctors who have died, the frontline workers, the journalists who are risking life to bring the story. No. And so the world has turned a divergent gaze in terms of not the people, not the ordinary people, but those who control, those whose human rights are above everybody else's, whose anniversary we're celebrating today, the 75th anniversary of the Declaration of the Establishment, also of the State of Israel, proclaimed May 14, 1948, by Ben-Gurion, head of a Jewish agency, recognized by the U.S. President Harry Truman on that very same day. So this 75 years is freedom rights. Don't have anything to do with us, so we must stop it. So we see the United States vetoing that UN resolution. That resolution was basically demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. So the human rights that the United States is protecting is the human rights of Israel. Their rights are more important than the rights of those they are killing. The thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinian civilians, babies and all. So it is a blatant hypocrisy for the United States to observe today International Human Rights Day. And Donald Trump was right to be kind of stepping away from the United Nations. He did quite a few things that when you look back at it, you said, but he was right after all. Walk away pull America from the UN, pull them out of the WHO and the whole of that. And I know that you're going to come at me with all kinds of stuff. But as usual, I'm just seeing the isness of things. And it is what it is. Because you're celebrating International Human Rights Day today, and there are all kinds of events and activities. 75 years. So here we are. Today, we have a right to remind ourselves as Africans that Africans are humans, that Haitians are humans, Palestinians are humans, the people of Yemen are humans, the people of the DRC are humans, Black Jamaicans are humans. And it is our rights that you're trampling on. And at the same time, trying to gaslight us into believing that you're protecting our rights. This is like an abusive husband who viciously and violently beats his wife and then turns around and says he's doing it because he loves her. This is basically what this is. This is what Jamaica has been doing to the majority of the black, dark, African, black-skinned people on this island. Taking away almost all of our rights, basic human rights, access to drinking water, clean drinking water, access to land. Without land, there's no freedom. Without land, there's no independence. Access to the rivers, you've taken that away, almost 100% now. We've lost access to most of our rivers across the island because this government is selling all the rivers. So we're losing access to the water, access to the sea, access to the shoreline. As I speak, every Sunday I come in this space, we lose more access. And then you turn around spending millions of dollars in taxpayers' money, standing up in front of a camera and talking about today is International Human Rights Day, and Jamaica signed on to the convention, and it's the theme is freedom, equality, and justice. What a piece of gaslighting! The audacity of it is phenomenal. Phenomenal. What about rights to justice? Equity and equality. Under the law and in the eyes of the law. Minister of Constitutional Affairs. And then that's on another level. The basic human rights of Jamaicans. Jamaicans are being denied just the basic human rights. Now, there are many ways to look at this, because there's middle-class Jamaican, upper-middle-class Jamaican, some other-class Jamaican who probably can't even identify with what I'm saying. Well, get out of your SUVs. Get out of your SUVs and from your gated communities and go see what's happening on this island. Go into the communities where people do not have drinking water and are being denied access to the rivers. And where there are rivers that they could access, those rivers are all dried up or drying up for numerous reasons, including prosperity, which is seeing a boom in construction, dumping up water sources, retraining and redirecting water sources onto private land, polluting water sources. Then I turn around and call it climate change. So this is our situation. This is our reality. We cannot and should not acknowledge this day except to say that it's a farce. It's gaslighting a nation. And until there's equal rights and justice, in the words of Peter Tosh and others, so many others, so here we are. This is our reality. This is our reality on the island on this 75th anniversary. So they're calling it International Human Rights Day, but it is really International White Privilege Day. It is really International White People Rights Day. It is really International Those Who Have Power Rights Day. It is really International Politicians Who Have Power Rights Day, who can take away all your rights from you and give it to others. It's FIDEM Day. That is what they mean by International Human Rights. They see themselves as more human than you and me. By the way, we're 1 week away or so, 1 week away from Christmas. And Mr. Matthew Samuda, Minister with responsibility for water, and also who's going to be running in this part of town, in Shahina Robinson's seat, he had announced that the Prime Minister tell him that Little Dundee must be open before Christmas. So I suppose the opening ceremony will be one day this week. So our rights are entrenched, or lack thereof, are entrenched in colonial documents and colonial laws, colonial acts of parliament that are still on the book right here in Jamaica. That's where our rights lie. So if you check it, then public can still charge us with jaywalking, because we don't have no right to cross the street. That is probably still on the book, you know? So if you check those colonial era acts that are still on the books here on the island, you'll understand what your right is and what your rights are. So here we are. Here we are. We have a right to a monarch as head of state. His name is Charles now. We have a right to pray first for Charles and his picnic before we pray for ourselves and our children. We have a right to ask for them God, to save them. God save the king now and his heirs and successors long before we ask God. God must have a sense of humor, you know, because every time Jamaican people go to God, especially when they go to God in court and when they go to God in parliament, God must be smiling. Mother, Father, God must be smiling, saying, here they come again, my children, praying first for their enslavers and asking me to bless their enslavers and to save their enslavers before they pray for their children. What a joke. What a joke.
And you know, the weird thing is, when you talk like this, they say you're crazy. They get upset with you. They get vexed with you. They say, Rasta crazy, because you're highlighting these facts that, you know, it's mind-boggling that we could sit down in 2023 still, and people still sit comfortable accepting this. Imagine you're supposed to be controlling your own space, and your people elect you, put you in position, and you go and play allegiance to King Charles. You go and play allegiance to the people who we are supposed to be electing you to lead us from. How that makes sense? And how is it that you, the masses, could sit back and then go out in hot sun and so to sit down and watch these people swearing to say this? We play allegiance to these people. We're doing their work. You know, this you sit back and you know, as I'm listening to this, right? Like a thought crossed my mind. How could we utilize a product, an asset of your country that you say is independent? You're using an asset, an asset that is supposed to be something that you create since your independence, so to speak, and you are hired by the people to work on behalf of the people. So you are selling this asset, or offering up this asset in exchange for monies on the premise to help these people. But you opt to sit down on how much ever it is this money is, and refuse to tell those who the money belongs to, those who you're supposed to be using the money on behalf of, those who you use the asset to sell to get the money on behalf of. You're refusing to tell them how much. And how much ever it is, you have it sitting down or doing whatever, investing with other foreigners in a lot of cases. And the people who you say you're doing this to try to help are starving and suffering and going through a lot of tough times. And you could take a fraction, you take 1 billion out of that and invest it in the people. The same people, because if you don't invest in them, they would not be around, because seemingly they're either going to kill themselves, kill off themselves. Maybe that's part of the plan to reduce the population according to the 2030 agenda. That, so all of this is part of this scheme. You have to wonder these things sometimes when you analyze what is going on, like, you can't tell me you use an asset and you've made over $5 billion according to some figures that were highlighted at some point. So let's use that. You have $5 billion. Yes, you need money for, hurricane could come, you could have sudden issues and so on. So you want to make sure that you have funds available, that you can do that. But an investment in the people, an investment in agriculture, $1 billion investment in agriculture. Look at the returns, look at the spin-off, look at how it is going to empower the people. If it's the people you really looking to serve, or if, as when you swear in, you are really and truly living out what you are saying in terms of being allegiance. Because you ain't allegiant to the people, you obviously is allegiant to the system that you represent, because you're elected to operate within a system that was created by those who you are claiming to be free from. So you still function under the Westminster style governance system, which is a system that was never designed for the people who you are claiming to represent and save. But I guess, the game of continue to keep those people ignorant and not necessarily engage in discussions like these. And even when they do hear these, some of them have been programmed to just, turn a blind eye to these, ridicule these people, dismiss them, ignore the noise, like meditation, But, the thing is, you can never stop, just like teaching, it's a mission. You might not get all, but some would be able to pick up and say, "Boy, yeah, that makes sense. I need to do a little bit more research. I need to do a little bit more investigation into this." So that's why you have to continue still. Even if it's one, person that you get that gets the message and is able to, yeah, that's it. Anyway.
So much happening around us. I'm not going to be spending all my morning on this day, but we really needed to talk about it. But we're also watching what's happening in Guyana, because there's some things happening there. Venezuela, I chuckle, but Maduro is causing consternation across the world. You know that. So he's not stopping. We have been talking about this, right? So the referendum happened. 95% or so voted for the referendum. The reporting on the West, on this side of the world, in the West, says that the turnout was low and just a handful of people and so on. The reporting from South America, and especially from Venezuela and from China and from Russia and from other countries, south of Yasso, saying that it was a stellar turnout and people flocked to the places and so on. The pictures and the videos coming out from this side of the world show a handful of people. The pictures from that side of the world showing long lines and people taking to the streets and so on. So you will think about this and talk about this from the perspective that you have tapped into. Media literacy is very important in this time when people are manufacturing consent. They manufacture consent through the media for the most part. So we're watching that. Quite a bit happening there, quite a bit happening there. Venezuela is making some serious move. We see Brazil now amassing or deploying its own troops to the border, because Brazil obviously protecting its border between Venezuela and Guyana, and there is a border there. And we are seeing a statement coming out from CARICOM. CARICOM finally met with permission apparently from the United States, because we saw how that played out, right? Some people go to Washington, they met with some people up there, and right after that, there was an announcement that the CARICOM was going to meet. And then CARICOM met, and they issued a statement, heads of government meeting on Friday, December 8th, discussing the situation with regard to Venezuela-Guyana border controversy, and agreed to issue the following statement. Let me quickly read the statement. CARICOM firmly supports Guyana in pursuance of the resolution of its border controversy with Venezuela through the process of the International Court of Justice. Further, CARICOM urges Venezuela to respect the conservatory measures determined by the ICJ in its recent ruling until a final resolution. CARICOM reiterates its commitment to the Caribbean as a zone of peace and the maintenance of international law. Accordingly, CARICOM calls for a de-escalation of the conflict and for appropriate dialogue between the leaders of Venezuela and Guyana to ensure peaceful coexistence, the application and respect for international law, and the avoidance of the use of threats or force. So that is the statement put out by CARICOM. All right. The United States also announced that Southcom is firmly situated now in Guyana. Well, there you go. Applaud.
No, you see, you see these kind of issues. Like, here is it. CARICOM would have met. Heads of nations would have met, and they signed whatever they signed on to. No, in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis, well, I'm not on St. Kitts and Nevis right now, but I follow a lot of what's happening on the ground on St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of social media and all that. I don't recall ever hearing any public debate, public consultations in terms of, trying to find out from the people on the ground what their position is, where they stand on this issue, but we get elected officials who are supposed to be representing us go and make decisions without any consultation with us, without any consultation and any feedback. And then when anything happens, it's us who they will expect and will still have to deal with the consequences of the decisions and actions that they take, as they would claim, and on behalf of us. So that is the part that baffles me a lot, how sometimes the decisions are made for us and on behalf of us without any consultations with us, and I said that because here is it, CARICOM is as Kabu is pointing out, is on the side of Guyana. Now, it was just in recent times, CARICOM, CARICOM well, let me not say CARICOM, but many of the countries in the Caribbean and members of CARICOM were seeking to work very closely with Venezuela in terms of getting the oil, the Caribe deal, the Sin Kitts and Nevis was a part of that. Um, so like when you look at these issues, and I think I stand to be corrected, but I'm certain at some point there was this push to seek to get Venezuela become a member of CARICOM. I'm certain back then there was that discussion. I have to follow up. I don't know if it's Venezuela, if it was another territory, but I'm sure that was part of the discussion to have Venezuela as a part of, so when we look at these kinds of things, and then this issue, if this issue escalates, even in terms of numbers, unless we're going to get outside support, um, this is a kind, I smile, but this is a kind of a ticklish situation, because even if CARICOM is supposed to come together and the RSS, and in terms of the numbers, you'll be like a mosquito, like it will be like a mosquito going up towards an elephant in terms of the Caribbean versus CARICOM versus Venezuela. And then if let's say Guyana and CARICOM get outside forces to support, if it is supposed to get to that point, if it reaches to escalate to violence, um, Venezuela have allies, right? And if they may support as well, then some of those allies we have diplomatic relations with. Like when you're in a position where you're begging, and this is part of the issue. This is part of the issue when like this thing can run so deep, when you have elected officials who squander the funds and do not do an effective job of empowering the people, so and diversifying the economy to the point where you do have funds and revenue and foreign exchange in the country on a regular basis. A lot of these countries are in debt, and so they find themselves going out, hand out everywhere they go, begging. And then in a lot of cases, it's not grants they get, it's more loans. And so, yes, especially around election times, they play the game and um, make you feel, you know, make you feel like they're doing something for you, and start some projects, and you know what I mean, and sometimes they never finish, but they do things to win your favor, so you could say, yeah, we're doing something. See, this is happening and that is happening, and they try to put a feather in their own cap for doing what they're hired to do anyway. Like, and like I sometimes use the analogy of a father, a single parent dad, is looking after his child, and he did something, maybe, like okay, he wasn't looking after his child, and he started to look after his child. He started to support his child. Okay. And so you need praises for that. You need praises to say that you're supporting your child. Well, that's what you're supposed to do. So if you were not doing it and you start doing it, okay. So if you're hired to do a job and you were not doing the job, and then you start to do some things to make it appear as if you're doing the job, but you need some special accolades for that, I should vote you back in based on that. Like, that is what, but you see, a lot of us fall for those kind of things. Anyway, let's get back into the discussion here with Sister Kabu, and her analyzing some of the things. I just thought of making that interjection as some of these things cross my meditation. Yeah, so let's get back into it.
How did they manage that? Good for you, Southcom. The militarization of Guyana is underway fully, right under our noses, right in front of our eyes. How in heaven's name did this happen? America went back to Venezuela, loosened the sanctions on Venezuela. Venezuela now sending barrels and barrels and barrels of oil to the United States now. The trade between them is ongoing. And right after that, Venezuela claims Essequibo. And there you have it, a war, ExxonMobil and Chevron and Shell and all of them. And look at here now. Just you look, Southcom, the United States Southern Command. Congratulations, America. Anyway, let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. You're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running African, and we're going live to Tanzania. We're going live to Tanzania now. All right, so Jerry is online, and my brother Jerry Small is in Tanzania and now online. Good morning, Jerry. How are you doing?
How are you doing? Fine, thank you. There's now 3 in the afternoon in Zanzibar.
Ah, Zanzibar. Look at you. Listen, and this is a place that I've always wanted to go to, Zanzibar. But you went there once, so this is your second time in Zanzibar? Oh, that's where you're staying? First. Oh, you're first. Okay. And your impressions of Zanzibar? Because this is a tourist area, isn't it?
Well, it is just as welcoming as the mainland. And of course, this was an ancient seaport and trading post for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And after 1971, it became federated with the mainland territory, which was formerly Tanganyika. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Invaded and raped by the Germans, and then handed over to the British in 1918. Mm-hmm. The British got Tanganyika from Turkey. No, they got Tanganyika from Germany, and they got Palestine from the allies of the Germans, the Turks. So they got both Palestine and Tanganyika at the same time. So they were successively raped by the Europeans, Germans, and Turkish, then by the British from 1918. Tanganyika only stayed under British rule for 43 years and became independent in 1961. Zanzibar, a few years later, a couple years later, was federated with the mainland, a small island about the size of Barbados, but very important in world affairs, commerce, economics, culture, religion.
And you've been in Tanzania now for 3 weeks now?
Yes, 3 weeks.
So I take it then you'd have had some time to kind of, get a grip, figure out what's happening on the island. In that land. Everywhere's an island to me because you're in Zanzibar. But to figure out how the politics, the economics and so on, because we had Tanzania just recently was going in a real Pan-African route, being seriously Pan-African. And then we had
one of the leading nations in Africa, leading Pan-Africanism, leading the liberation, the base of most of the liberation fighters for the last 70 years.
Mm-hmm. And your own perspective or perception of what it is now?
Well, one of the most significant things that it is now a female, a lady, is the president of Tanzania now, and she is from Zanzibar. She is from the small island of Zanzibar, yet she is now the president of Tanzania, having succeeded the previous president, the first president to die while in office. Yeah. The Constitution states that the vice president shall serve out the rest of the incumbency, which was just about 6 months into the second incumbency of that president. So she has served that, and president shall serve 2 successive terms, which comes to 10 years. So there's a female, a lady now is the president of Tanzania, and it is improving the situation of the ladies. They're the females, and a lot of them are in office now. Even our chief of security is a lady, and many other. And she was the former minister of tourism. And there is a move afoot to twin Tanzania with Negril, because Tanzania is a great tourist center, but Jamaica does 3.5 times the population. No, Jamaica has 2.9 million citizens, and they bring in Jamaica brings in 5 million tourists a year. The population of Tanzania is 70 million. They bring in 1.5, and they are pleased with that. But Jamaica is in the consul of Jamaica in Tanzania, Mrs. Betty Delphos, who I'm here with right now at the ferry. I'm boarding the ferry now to go back to the mainland. She's here with me. She's helping to bring about a twinning of Negril and Zanzibar, so that Tanzania and Zanzibar might enjoy the same ratio or better of tourists to citizens that Jamaica knows enjoy.
Our experience on here on the island in Jamaica, with the kind of tourism that Jamaica practices, and even what has happened to Negril. It's an egregious, insidious tourism, and right. So I would want to know from Betty, if she's willing to talk about this. How would Tanzania do things differently from what's happening now in Jamaica, considering that Jamaican people have been denied so much access that we have lost almost all access to the beaches in Negril. The kind of tourism they are practicing is really anti the people of Jamaica.
Yeah. Yes, now let's hope that Tanzania and Zanzibar will rub off on Jamaica the type of citizenship that is enjoyed here. All beaches are public and common property, and the people walk the beaches as their own, as it should be everywhere in the world. Matter of fact, the stretches of beaches are actually roots and water, and they are roots. So the banks of rivers and the shores of countries are natural roots. And when people walk in from one part of the city in Dar es Salaam, especially on the peninsula to another, they walk along the beach. If they don't want to drive in a car, thousands of people continue walking along the beach, just as it used to be. It is like that in Negril to a certain extent. And let's hope that Zanzibar and Tanzania will rub that back off on Jamaica. Unlike Barbados, which has for years enforced no restriction of beaches to tourists or hotel properties.
So Jerry, I'd like to correct you on that, Jerry, because it's no longer like that in Negril. And
yes, the government has sold out the people recently.
Right. So you have to book into a hotel to be able to access the beach in Negril, and the one you can access, it's just a narrow strip of land now. So it's more or less all gone in Negril, including the rivers.
May I say one thing before your next question?
Yes.
Fortunately, Mrs. Betty Delphos is right here in the VIP lounge of the ferry with me here, and she cannot speak, but I have taped a 27-minute interview with her, which I hope to be able to play on your program next week, touching these very topics. Now, the next thing is, just before your next question, is that today is the 10th of December, and in 1948, on the 10th of December, the United Nations, just 3 years established before in 1945, made the Declaration of Human Rights on the 10th of December 1948. Jamaica, 14 years later, was admitted to the United Nations, and the first contribution that Jamaica made in the United Nations was to propose that human rights should be celebrated as a year. The idea was accepted from the new nation, Jamaica, and the year that was set aside to celebrate human rights was the year 1968. Little did Shearer know. Shearer was the delegate of Jamaica to the United Nations at the time. Little did he know that he would be the Prime Minister in 1968. and Jamaica would explode in protest over the abuse of the human rights by the Jamaican government.
Well, that's what we've been talking about all morning, because this is, for us today, the 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. We're talking about who's a human being, who is defined as a human being, and who defining human beings, and our Palestinians human beings, and our Jamaicans who are being denied access to the beach and access to land and access to drinking water. What kind of human being? And it is a Orwellian state where some people are created, all people are created equal, but some are more equal than some. So that we are rejecting the idea that this is that we should be observing or celebrating this international so-called human rights day. It's International White Privilege Day, International White People Rights Day, International Those Who Have the Power Day. Yeah, so it's Zionist Day. And so this is where we find ourselves on this 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, and it is such a shame. And we have an ad, for example, running here on television, where the Minister of Constitutional Affairs has spent thousands of dollars, obviously, and probably running into millions, with this ad talking about today, where at the same time, Jamaicans are being denied our rights along the way. So I feel very strongly about this, Jerry. Is that an announcement? Is that an announcement for the ferry?
We are going to be boarding the ferry. May I join you after we are settled on the ferry?
Okay. Hopefully. Let me. And how much time? Because we have more interviews lined up for 7:30 and so on. But go ahead, Jerry. You were saying significantly.
But significantly, it was the interaction of Walter Rodney with us, the youth of Jamaica, that led to protests against the abuses of Jamaicans since 1962, especially starting with the Coral Gardens neighborhood by the Jamaica Labour Party government of 1963, and the linking of Walter Rodney with the youth of Jamaica and the people outside of the university campus led to the explosion, which was a climactic event in the protests against the human rights abuses since 1963 and before in the colonialism of England and Jamaica. And it was from Tanzania that Walter Rodney was coming, that he was strengthened. It was by staying in Tanzania that he was strengthened after gaining a PhD at the age of, I think, 24 or 25 years. And it, because of the nature of the liberation struggle of Tanzania, led by Julius Nyerere, that gave him this haven where he could develop himself more and write a book for Europe and the developed Africa. And it was straight from Tanzania that he was coming to Jamaica.
Yes.
And this is Tanzania has always been the frontline state that harbors, protects, and equips the liberation struggles of the people of Africa all over the world.
That is so true. Jerry, all right, go ahead and board, Jerry. I'm not quite sure. We have 50.
Do we have to board right away? Oh, all right, I have time. I understand that we go off the board right away. You can go off the board.
All right. Okay, so well, tell us about that experience you're having there now, because we can't ignore that thing. So basically, you're boarding the ferry from where to where?
From Zanzibar back to the mainland, Dar es Salaam.
Okay. All right, and how many people that ferry can carry? We're trying to picture you.
It can carry thousands. Well, I have been on a ferry from Trinidad to Tobago, which was the largest ferry. It was the largest catamaran in the world, because it had been serving in Canada, and Canada sold it to Trinidad. And that ferry it takes 1,000 vehicles, much less people. I think it takes 5,000 people. This one is not as big, but I'm sure it can take more than 1,000 people. And this is a common assault here. On the way over here in slightly less than 2 hours, we passed about 7 huge ferries coming back from Zanzibar, and it's just like a highway. You just see the ferries one after the other.
Yes.
Ultra modern compared with Jamaica.
It reminds me of what you see on the River Nile.
On the Nile. Yeah.
So even though you say ferry, you're talking about really big boats. I mean, we say ferry, so you're talking.
It's the Port Royal could probably hold in the Port Royal ferry would probably hold in a side pocket of this. We're not posting size. Size is not everything, but yes. It is a hugeness of this population, 70 million people. The capital is 7 million people, Dar es Salaam. Yes. And the continent is huge. Only one continent is larger than Africa. And the possibilities and the future is great for us once we continue to integrate.
Yeah. Have you? I know that Jamaicans are moving to Tanzania, one by one, two by two, and are relocating. We have been linking with Tanzania over time, so we have already relocated there. Have you run into anyone from Jamaica who have relocated to Tanzania or just passing through?
Well, the honorary consul for Jamaica has relocated here.
Yeah.
See, love the sound of what I'm hearing here. You know, that effort to seek to connect with Africa, to connect with the mainland, to go back and make those connections. So it's not just about adding a number, a statistic to say you have visa-free access to these territories, but actually, seeking to create that exchange of knowledge, that exchange of movement of people going back and forth, knowledge, skills, technology. We have been brainwashed a lot in terms of our concept of Africa, and like those who want us to think a particular way about ourselves and those parts of the world. They paint a picture, just like as the sister was saying here, when you listen to the news right now and you get the news from the Western media, in terms of the referendum that they had in Venezuela, the Western world is painting the picture that, it was just a handful turnout and the numbers were small. But then when you listen to news from Russia and China and so on, and different parts of, Colombia and those parts of the world, they're giving you a whole other side of the story, right? So, this is sometimes the scenario that we find ourselves in. And that's why, we definitely have to seek for ourselves, we get the story that Africa, people out there starving. So a lot of people, a lot of people would be thinking, why would I want to go over there? But here is this brother from Jamaica in Tanzania, and is speaking about his experience and sharing, the possibilities now that they're seeking to create, the linkages that they're seeking to create. And this is a direction that we really need to zoom in on. Africa is, in terms of rising economies, it's up on the charts in terms of one of the top rising global economies. While we are missing the boat, I think we are still thinking of looking to the West, to Europe and America and Britain, and we should be making a more keen move and closer move. I love the move that Barbados is making in terms of seeking to create flights, because when we look at the geography as well, there's a lot of things that seemingly is systematically set up in a way for us to because when you look at it right now, the main route to Africa is through Europe. So imagine you want to go, but you still have to leave. You have to spend that money through their territory, travel to their territory to get to Africa. When you look at it geographically, it's easy to take a direct flight from some point in the Caribbean and get to Africa. Don't go that side, just go straight. And this is something that I think Barbados is working on. Antigua was working on something. St. Kitts and Nevis, I don't know, but I think based on what is happening in regards to, the kind of recognition that St. Kitts and Nevis has, I think we need to seriously begin to think of setting St. Kitts as a hub, just like how Antigua is deemed a hub, St. Martin is deemed a hub, right? For some of these major airlines, we need to start to present ourselves in that way, and so that we can now entertain more flights from different parts of the world. We open up our markets to Africa, open up our markets to, Saudi Arabia, to Dubai, to, I mean, I know we're open, but what I'm saying is trying to make connections, seeking to create those kind of linkages so we can get those people to